These are Thoughts from My Car, Episode 5. Today, monkeying around with cameras, continuing along the campaign trail, and the obligatory movie review. All this and more from the only known photography-based podcast that's willing to admit that it's recorded from inside of a moving car and doesn't just sound that way. I'm Rob from SGNR Photo, and I thank you once again for coming along for the ride. So we are continuing along the campaign trail for the Indiegogo fundraiser to bring up the funds necessary to produce the documentary The Beautiful People. There are approximately 50 days left in the campaign. Where has the time gone? I don't know necessarily where the time has gone, but I know that it has not yet proven to be time well spent. I will admit I'm a little bit discouraged that things have not moved at all in terms of donation value. We're still sitting at a whopping 0.17% funded, which is not very good. And I do realize that there are 50 days left to go in the 60-day campaign, but the thing with building momentum is there needs to be some forward progress at the start for the momentum to build off of. And it doesn't look like we're getting a whole lot of that. And part of me wonders if the reason behind it is more to do with the general state of photography. That is to say, how people perceive photography, how people perceive it as a service, how people perceive it as an art form. And in both cases, they're getting more and more laughable in the eyes of most people. As I've said before, there are the class of weekend warriors who go out and undercut everybody, give away every service for free, and provide a very, very, well, let's be generous and call it a low-quality product, or lower quality product than you would expect from anyone charging money to play the game of professional photography. Now, that's not to say that every photographer that charges money is a professional, and not all professionals actually charge. I know quite a few photographers who are incredible that don't charge, but they don't go out and, advertise themselves as, being in business of taking family photos or weddings. They do it because they love it. They happen to be exceptional at it. And they're not looking for the money. They are true amateurs. They are lovers of photography. And I'm just slowing down a bit. Sorry if I'm sounding a bit distracted. I just saw some deer go scurrying into the woods. That being one of the occupational hazards of recording a podcast from a moving vehicle. But back on topic. And so, as a service, I don't think too many people take it very seriously because there is a huge glut, a huge saturation of people who have cameras, who are willing to shill their services for pennies on the dollar, and so on. As an art form, I think that ship sailed a long time ago. I don't think people really truly view photography as an art form in general. I'm talking in general. If you were to poll the average person on the street and ask them if they thought photography was an art form, they would likely respond with yes, and then proceed to load up their favorite Instagram feeds. No doubt of someone's dinner or their feet on a beach, or the wing of a plane. That's always a really good one. So the standard of photography has slipped quite a bit in the eyes of many. definitely in terms of an art form. In terms of a paid service, well, there are still people willing to pay, but just a lot less than maybe they would otherwise if the quality overall of the overall product or genre were much better. And what does this have to do with me producing my documentary? Well, in essence, I am a photographer, and I am a photographer who is looking to expand into video, digital film, whatever you want to call it. But the fact remains is that I am perceived first and foremost as a photographer. So the rules of, is this valuable, is this something that I'm willing to get behind, is not, it basically applies. It's the same application of the, well, anybody can do it, so why would I bother? What would it matter if he did it too? Or do we need yet another independent amateur filmmaker out there? And I can get that. I can respect that. That's a perfectly valid reason. I am hoping it is one that people will reconsider. I'm hoping that people will look at the premise behind what I'm doing. That is to say, take a look at the whole issue of style, beauty, and self-image from the point of view of the people that work within the framework or within the construct of this, fashion world, and come out with something a little, come out with a change of heart and say, you know what, maybe this is something I want to know about. Maybe this is something I'd like to hear about. Which would be nice, because the alternative is if I really wanted to raise a lot of funds with the current clickbait wars going on Facebook and Twitter and everything, I could go ahead and create two separate Indiegogo campaigns about the war in Israel or over Gaza or whatever it is that you want to call it. I'm sure the media have a lovely little nickname for it, and I'm sure that Hayden over at The Eloquent Gentleman could give me the scoop on that. But all I would need to do is say I'm going over there to produce a documentary, and each of the campaigns I could do one that's completely pro-Israel, one that's completely pro-Palestinian, throw up a whole lot of clickbait, probably raise a couple $1 million in about 6.5 minutes from all these people that want, that want to promote their point of view, that the truth is out there, and you're either pro this or anti this and whatnot, and could probably raise the funds really, really quickly. If it wasn't complete fraud and risk throwing me in jail, it would be something to consider. Actually, I'm joking. I do know that there are serious issues around the world, probably much more serious than the ones that I'm trying to put forward, but I do hope that for any of you who are out there who are on the fence and thinking about donating, thinking about clicking that link and tossing a couple dollars by way of the project, I really hope that you do, because everything does count. It's not a huge goal that we're looking for. This isn't, we're not looking for $1 million budget. The donation ranges are from $2 to $50. I'm not expecting too many people to jump on the $50 bandwagon. If you do, praise be to you and to whatever deity that you choose to worship. And I will thank you equally with a $2 donation as I would with a $50 donation. Speaking of thank yous, I do need to put a shout out to Lee Jansen, who was the first person to jump on the donation train. He is the very first and so far only person who believe not. And I really got to choose my words carefully, not just the only person to show that they believe in the project, because I'm sure there are others who believe in the project and have been sharing it with their social circle, but the first and so far only to take that step of actually pushing toward getting it done. a lot of people like to talk about getting things done and what a great idea it would be for certain things to happen, but we don't always follow through. We don't always have, that final push toward the finish line to really get things done. And Lee has not only retweeted a lot of my promo material, he's also shared a lot of things with his friends, and even went the ultimate, took the ultimate step of actually putting some money on the table and helping to fund it. So my hat is off to you, sir. I thank you very much for your donation. I hope that you will be in good company very, very soon. Because it would be very nice for people to reconsider the idea that what I'm trying to do is at least important enough to be given a chance, and to overcome the overwhelming feeling that photography is so easy that even a monkey can do it. Which conveniently leads me to my next topic. As I was uploading episode 4 to the YouTube, because the way I host it is I record this audio, I slap my logo on it in terms of my video editor, I run the audio, I export as a video, put it up on YouTube, stream it through my webpage. For those of you who had absolutely no desire to know how I did all of this, it keeps it free, which is nice. But moving right along, as I was uploading the podcast to YouTube so that it can be streamed for all of you, I read a story that came into my news feed from the previous day. That would be last Wednesday. And it involved a man named Mr. David Slater, who is suing or considering suing Wikipedia because they will not take down, now imagine about 4 sets of air quotes, one of his images. There really needs to be a verbal only version of the air quotes, but you get the idea. So he is claiming that Wikipedia is using one of his images without his permission, and that this is costing him money. He is requesting, or should I say demanding, that Wikipedia take this image down. And Wikipedia is quite sensibly refusing to, on account that Mr. Slater did not actually take the photo. Yeah, that's exactly what you think it is. I left that pause intentionally so you could actually hear it. David Slater is asking Wikipedia to take an image down that he himself did not take. But he is claiming the rights to, because the photo was taken with his camera by a monkey. I think technically it was a macaque that took it, which I'm not going to get into the whole zoology bit of it. But needless to say, it was not taken by Mr. Slater himself or another of his species. It was taken by an animal in the jungle while he was setting up for some nature photography. He set up his camera, got everything ready, was shooing off some animals that were rummaging through his gear, because obviously, if an animal can take a shiny object from you, and photography objects tend to be very expensive and incredibly hard to replace in the jungle, you want to chase them off and keep your stuff as best as you can. And as he was chasing off a group of animals, one of the pack or herd or whatever you use as the plural for a group of macaques or monkeys, one of them grabbed his camera and started fooling around with it and ended up taking a rather interesting selfie. I'm tempted to put it up on the website, or at least link to this image, not necessarily because I think Mr. Slater's image deserves more publicity, but because I just want to show a lot of people, especially on Facebook, that monkeys can take better selfies than they can. The monkey took his in focus, well, or hers. I don't think they determined the gender of the monkey's macaque, whatever, that took the photo. So how does this relate to Wikipedia? Well, Wikipedia has this image up on their website, and they are claiming that this photo is public domain. And they are claiming it is public domain for the following reason. The image was taken by a non-human animal, and because it was taken by a non-human animal, there is no human that they can attribute copyright to. Therefore, the image is public domain. Seems pretty reasonable. No human being took the photo. Copyright laws are meant to protect human beings who are authors of a specific work, so you would expect it to be that, yeah, it's not human? Okay, alright, I get it. Mr. Slater thinks otherwise. In fact, he's going around with the very disingenuous claim that Wikipedia is refusing to take down the photo because Wikipedia is allegedly claiming that a monkey owns the rights to the photo, which of course anyone with a third grade education level and reading level would be able to see on Wikipedia's site that that's not even close to what they're saying. There's a big difference between a human did not take this photo and this photo belongs to a monkey. It's pretty clear. There's a pretty clear distinction there. However, to sensationalize the whole ordeal and to try and win some sympathy, clickbait votes in the popular media, Mr. Slater has decided to take the low road, and instead of just taking the fame that comes along with the story and promoting his services out the wazoo, he's decided to be a bit of an ass about it and is deciding to take the publicity by suing Wikipedia and making himself look like a bit of an idiot in the process. I'm sorry if you're listening there, Mr. Slater. I'm not looking to get sued for libel or anything, but you're really not coming off with an especially intelligent argument, especially when you consider what's up on Wikipedia's site. There are better ways, I think, that this can be handled. For what it's worth, good luck with your lawsuit. I don't think I'd be very surprised if you won. But yeah, I don't get it. But getting back to the original story, we have now a photographer claiming that a website is telling him that a monkey owns the rights to, quote-unquote, his photo, which, of course, he did not take, but was taken with his camera. And let's say the evidence that's on Wikipedia's site completely contradicts every claim that Mr. Slater's making. It's pretty clear. Taken by non-human animal, no human can be attributed the copyright to the image. This image is public domain. Now here's where the big problem comes, and this is where the eloquent gentleman will probably have a bit of a field day with this sort of thing, because they are also a little bit dismayed with the general dumbing down of society as we know it. The National Post, one of the major newspapers here in Canada, has decided to run with the same headline that Mr. Slater is pushing, that Wikipedia refuses to remove a man's image because they're saying a monkey owns it. Now, you know what? I get where Mr. Slater's coming from. I get where he's trying to go with it. He's trying to generate sympathy for himself, for his plight. He's hoping that with enough popular support, He won't actually have to go to court, where undoubtedly he's going to have a very, very rough time proving that he owns the rights to the image and that therefore he deserves compensation for Wikipedia releasing it out into the public domain, or claiming that's public domain and letting people reproduce it without compensating them. I get where he's coming from, because taking that to court, it's going to be a very tough sled proving you own the rights to an image, especially when you first came out with this image and told everybody the story of how it was created. That you yourself were out in the jungle and that you were shooing away other animals, and a monkey took their own photo with your gear. You told everybody this. You actually came out and claimed it was an accidental photo. So going to court and proving now that you are the undisputed rights holder to this image, well, that's going to be a tough sled. So I get that you have to do everything in your power to try and make sure this doesn't go to court. Where I have a problem is when the national media doesn't actually look into things. They don't actually look into the story. They just take it as a headline and run with it. They just go with it. It's, oh, okay, here you go. Sensationalist headline. This should capture people's attention for 5 minutes so we can sell them some ads. Let's go. I'm a little disappointed in that. I wish I could say I was surprised, and I don't even know why I'm terribly disappointed. I should realize by now that, things you read in the newspaper is going to be generally one step above tabloid garbage at best. But yeah, a little bit strange in the world of photography these days. Not especially the it doesn't paint us in the most intelligent light. And I can see why a lot of people will not take photographers very seriously when they talk about very serious issues such as the rights to their work. Because image stealing, I guess for the lack of a better term, goes on all the time. Websites will use photographers' images without their permission, often to advertise for their own website or their own website services. They'll just go online, they'll do an image search through Google for something that they're looking for, find an image, co-opt it, crop it a little differently, maybe recolor it, change it to black and white, change saturation levels or whatever, claim it's their own image and just throw it up on their website and hope no one will notice. Happens all the time. In these cases, the authors of the works actually do own the rights to their images because they actually made it. They actually took and processed the photos. They didn't just let an animal snap the shutter while their camera was sitting on a tripod. So yeah, strange things happening in the world of photography these days. Well, this brings us to roughly, actually it's not even the halfway point of my voyage into work on this sunny Monday morning, but I am rapidly approaching the local coffee shop down the road, as it were, to pick up a little morning boost before heading into work. So I'm going to leave you with a little bit of an intermission while I collect my caffeinated goodness, and I'll be back. And welcome back. We are on the road, refreshed and caffeinated like a boss. Before I continue, I do want to take this opportunity to thank Mr. David Flint and Mr. Hayden Hewitt of The Eloquent Gentleman and The Eloquent Gentleman podcast in their most recent episode, that being episode number 9. They basically took a chunk out of the middle of their show specifically to promote the Indiegogo campaign for the beautiful people, which is the project that I'm looking to put together. and they went on at length. It wasn't just a 30-second, hey, go check this out, it's really cool. They actually took the time to sell to their listeners that the project was worthwhile, encouraged people to go by, share the link, donate, and for that I thank the two of you. I also encourage my own listeners to go and check out the Eloquent Gentleman podcast when they will be launching their own Indiegogo campaign, which I believe is coming in the near future. I'll definitely be promoting that as well, and I will definitely be throwing a little bit toward the cause myself, because I think it's a really, really cool podcast, a very interesting idea, and a whole lot of fun on top of that. So once again, big thank you to the Eloquent Gentleman, and when this project comes to fruition, I do plan on reserving a very special acknowledgement within the credits for you. So, moving right along to the next segment. It's been a bit of an interesting weekend. It's actually Monday morning. I'm on my way to work for an early Monday morning shift after a 3-day weekend to kind of refresh, relax, recharge the physical and mental batteries with varying degrees of success, I must say. And one of the things that I did this weekend was I checked out the Adorama TV YouTube channel, which is something I like to do from time to time. I like the presenters. Some of the presenters are a wealth of interesting information. It's not always new, but it tends to be very interesting. There are some techniques that I may already be using, but not in the same way that they are. So it's always good to see what kind of results that you can get by using the same tools you have in a different way. I won't get into specifics because that gets into really technical stuff, and it's really boring in audio only. It's more of something that you would need to show visually, and maybe I'll get to that one of these days. But to make a short story long, I was going through the Adorama TV website and catching up on some of my favorite presenters, and noticed that they had a new segment in the photography-based online learning video section, or whatever it is that they call it. Every website has, or every sort of photography-based thing for their YouTube channel, they call it different things. Some call it learning centers, some call it, resource centers, or what have you. And so I decided to take a look at this new or newly minted segment that they feature on Adorama TV on the YouTube channel, which is all about iPhoneography. And immediately my eyes rolled back in my head, and I just could not believe what I was seeing. Now, I'm going to come off as a bit of a pretentious snob, and quite honestly, I don't care at this point. My views about cell phone photography are pretty well known. I don't really take it very seriously. And I don't take it very seriously for a couple of reasons. One is, most people, when it comes to taking photos with a cell phone, they look like they're having a seizure in terms of how blurry their photos are. Their photos are blurred to shit. The images are noisy. They're really, really terrible. The color reproduction is horrible. And then usually there's about 10 different stacked crappy filters that are meant to emulate a vintage camera, but really just makes it look like, I always think when people come up with these settings, these presets, that they're sitting around the R&D table and kind of coming up with a dare. Like, oh yeah, I bet you we can come up with a filter that no one will use. It's like a $10 bet. Who is going to use the low 5, the low 5 reset? Who's going to use the X Pro 2? You Instagram people know exactly what I'm talking about. These filters look like junk. They don't enhance any image that they're applied to, and yet they're slathered all over pretty much any blurry selfie that people are taking in a dirty bathroom mirror. Or a blotchy, grainy, slightly blurred image of what they're eating for dinner inside a dimly lit restaurant. I don't really take photography with phones very seriously. And part of it has to do with the fact that modern smartphones are a great many things. They are an absolute convenience. They're an absolute joy to have. I rely on mine probably more than I really should. I have a Samsung Galaxy Note 3, very powerful, very fast. It's actually powerful enough if I wanted to. I could install Linux on it and use it as almost as a regular tablet. And at the size of it, it's almost the size of a small tablet. It has a full 1080p screen. I can actually watch movies on it, which I do sometimes in the bedroom, and so on and so on. It's a lot of really great things. What it's not is a really great camera. And that's in spite of the fact that it has a 13 megapixel camera, which is more resolution than what I have on most of my cameras. In fact, I think it may even be the highest resolution camera that I own. My DSLRs, actually, no, it is. It is the highest resolution camera that I own. My DSLRs are 12 megapixels. The DSLRs that I use for my paid work and for my personal work have less resolution than the camera on my cell phone. But I will not reach for my cell phone unless I need a really quick and dirty image of something that, I can't wait to, I don't have the time to wait and go run, grab my DSLR and do whatever. If I have to take a photo, or if I need a quick photo to send off to Krista when I'm out shopping going, okay, is this what you're looking for? Yeah, I'll use my cell phone for that. I'll use my cell phone to take photos of my son for Instagram, because that's pretty much what I use my Instagram feed for, so I can keep kind of a running diary or running photo album of my boy as he grows up. But other than that, I really don't take it. It's not a device that I would rely on exclusively for photography. And part of it, actually all of it has to do with the hardware. If you are under ideal conditions, and I'm talking about really great lighting, really even lighting, then yeah, cell phones, yeah, they can make sense. For the most part, however, they're just not worth it. If you're in low light conditions, your photos are going to suck. If you're in conditions of mixed lighting, especially when you get into different types of, you're in a room with a skylight and, incandescent light somewhere and fluorescent light somewhere else, yeah, give it up. You're not going to get anything resembling a nice image without tons of color casting everywhere. And I see this in my friends' images all the time online. You can see it. I know that you've taken a photo with a cell phone when I see that you're in a room with your hands on your hips and you are glowing bright orange like a raver kid. It just doesn't look flattering. I can tell that you are using a cell phone to take photos of your kids to share for whatever reason. When they're barely lit, uh, it's just grainy, blotchy noise everywhere. It just looks terrible. Not to say that DSLRs are the only way to go, but there's a reason why they still sell cameras. And that's because cameras are really great at being cameras. I wouldn't rely on my point-and-shoot camera to make phone calls or check my Facebook status, and I don't rely on my cell phone to take images at anything resembling a critical moment. In fact, most of the images I've ever taken on my cell phone, even of my own son, have ended up being deleted at one point or another just because I look at them, they're all blurry, they're not sharp, and I just go, screw it. I'd rather wait and take a better photo later with a real camera. So to see that an entire section of Adorama TV is being devoted to taking photos with a cell phone. Now, they do call it iPhoneography, but they do come out and say, yes, this does apply to other types of cell phones as well, which is just as well, seeing as how iPhones only make up, I think, about 15 or 20% of the total smartphone market. Android is all over the place. BlackBerry's starting to get back into the game bit by bit until they stop, but they're up and down. They're all over the map. But I'm not sure how I feel about this. And one of the reasons is Adorama Photography is actually quite a well-known store. It's actually a rather well-known place based out of New York City. I won't go out of my way to say that it's extremely prestigious. You know, we're not talking about an art institute, but it's very well known as a place that you go to for photography and photography-based products. They're not like the local big box store where you go in and you can buy a DSLR and a lens for your SLR and a flash for your SLR, tripod, memory card, and then you can also pick up a big screen TV and a laptop. And at the same time, you can go and you can buy the latest Justin Bieber, whatever the fuck he put out lately. It's a camera store. That's what it's there for. If you are into photography, it is a photography store, and that's it. If you're looking for the latest Xbox games, they will send you somewhere else. They specialize in photography. So for them to come out and start putting out cell phone tutorials, I kind of scratch my head a little because, again, cell phones, not great cameras. And not only that, but the entire, or most of what I gathered from the pilot episode of the iPhoneography is it's all about what app you use. It has really nothing to do with the actual photography itself. It's, download this app and your photos will be better. Yeah, okay. And I try not to be dismissive about photography in terms of moving forward with technology. I think the technology of the Lytro is quite fantastic. I just don't approve of how they're marketing this technology. I think that having high-ish resolution image capturing on smartphones is a good idea for certain applications, but I don't see it replacing a proper point-and-shoot camera. Even a point-and-shoot camera will have more control over the image than you would pretty much get with a smartphone. At the very least, the point-and-shoot camera will have a much faster shutter speed, so you don't have that 2.5 second delay from the time you say take the image to the time you actually get an image on your screen, by which time the person that you're taking the photo of has moved, everything's blurred, everything is fuzzy, and it just looks like crap. So yeah, not sure where this is going. I might watch another episode or two just to see if anything at all can come of it. But I'm not really holding my breath that it's going to be anywhere near as informative as they're making it out to be. It looks to me like a very cheap marketing ploy to try and get people into their advertising, by kind of, and again, I'm going to sound like a total snob, but by deluding them into thinking that they're going to take really great photos with their cell phone, when the odds of it are a lot lower than it would be if they had even a pretty basic point-and-shoot camera. And with that said, on to the movie review. Of course, one of the things that I've been doing with this podcast, or one of the things that I have been talking about in this podcast over the last few episodes, have been movies that are shot predominantly using digital SLR or digital camera technology. And I'm not talking about the really high-end stuff that you get from, like, the Lord of the Rings or what have you. These are just basically consumer cameras that you can purchase off the shelf, add a couple nice lenses to, and with proper lighting and technique, you can actually emulate motion pictures that were shot on film, which is really cool. It's nice that technology has come that far, because one of the things that looks really cheesy is when things are shot on camcorders. When things are shot on camcorders using really bizarre frame rates, you can tell it doesn't look cinematic in the slightest. But when you get something that's shot in 24p, and you get just that right amount of kind of motion blur and everything just kind of sings, it really, really looks no different than if you were watching a movie that was shot using traditional film cameras. And in some cases, it can actually look better. So I've been watching quite a few of these. I've been seeking them out. I've been taking suggestions and looking to see, well, what can I learn in terms of breaking down the lighting, in terms of breaking down what the editor is doing, in terms of the coloring of the images, in terms of the processing of the images, to make these things look as nice as possible. And on the flip side, it's what can I learn in terms of what to avoid. Situations that I put myself in where things just break down, fall apart, and look like crap. And so on. And so I've been viewing films over the past few weeks, and the latest film that I watched is called Act of Valor, which again is an older movie, so I'm not terribly worried about spoilers. Although I usually don't tend to spoil the movies anyway, mostly because, I don't think people are going to rush out to watch these movies the second I review them, especially since I'm reviewing them a couple of years after the fact that they've been released. I don't think too many people are that desperate to see what I'm talking about. But I digress. Act of Valor is the best way I can put it is, if you're really, really tired of watching a big, dumb Hollywood action movie, and you want something, from a different point of view, Act of Valor is a very small, art house-like, dumb action movie. This is a big, dumb action movie on a low budget done by indie filmmakers, or at least it looks that way. I was actually shocked to find out that the budget of this movie was $12 million, which puts it far ahead of some other films that, probably deserve a lot more attention than they actually got. Yeah, I don't get where all the money went. The whole premise of Act of Valor is, this is the story of a team of Navy SEALs who are involved in a very complex and intertwining plot about trying to thwart an international terrorist who is financed by an international drug dealer. And that's pretty much it. Active terrorism happens in one part of the world, being financed by someone who is dealing drugs in another part of the world, and the Navy SEAL teams are into... See, this movie is so bad I'm yawning while talking about it. Yeah, it's really your standard dumb action movie plot. The only really cool thing about it is it features actual Navy SEALs for a lot of the movie. I believe the principal actors in terms of the Navy SEALs are actually active Navy SEALs from the military, or were at the time of filming. And of course, this was done with the full cooperation and support of the U.S. Military, and who, of course, demanded the rights to final cut privileges so they could make sure that if there was any sensitive information, it was taken out, or they could use some of the footage for training videos, which I'm sure the filmmakers didn't mind. But again, international terrorism plot kicks off, and of course the Navy SEALs are brought in to kind of, it's not really to figure out what's going on, but to capture the person behind it. They're kind of given, the terrorist is given up by his financier, and then, of course, the mission to go and capture said terrorist. Very, very basic plot, easy to follow, very poorly executed in terms of story. The dialogue is horrible. The pacing of the story is horrible. The motif, I'm not sure if it counts as a motif. It's kind of a visual device that takes you from one location to the other. It's sort of a play on the old Indiana Jones, where you see the map and the dots on the map as you go from one area of the world to the other, and then kind of superimpose the plane flying through the air. Well, it's a very similar device, but it's much more digital and military looking, and very stupid. It's also very poorly done. It looks like it was thrown together very cheaply in After Effects, or just lifted right out of a video game. That's really what it looks like. It looks like it was lifted right out of Call of Duty. It's almost, like let's screen cap what they do in Call of Duty and then superimpose it over our movie. That's a lot of what it looks like. It would have been a lot less clunky to just throw down a simple caption. Colombia, or wherever it is that they were, or Indonesia, February 2nd of whatever year. So yeah, visually, in terms of the editing, that falls apart. Visually, in terms of the actual camera work, it was very, very impressive all around, and I have to give kudos to Shane Hurlbut, who is the director of photography, and he is one of the main, I won't say pioneers, but he's definitely one who is pushing the industry to embrace this kind of technology, to sort of put film aside, let it it's had its moment in the sun. Let's embrace the new digital technology. Let's embrace digital film and see what we can do with it. And he has been making movies and music videos using digital SLRs for quite some time now. And I have to say, you can tell this is someone who's put a lot of time into learning their craft, because the imagery, or the images, are absolutely beautiful. Bright middle of the daytime scenes, very low lit nighttime scenes. Everything looks crisp, everything looks sharp. There's not a whole lot of noise going on. You know, it doesn't get into that blocky kind of territory that I had, that I'd been seeing in Hard Boiled Sweets. It's a really, really beautiful movie to look at. Definitely one that I will probably reference going forward in terms of setting a style, setting kind of a tone visually. It's very beautiful in that regard. And so something very much to look at. Definitely not something to listen to. The dialogue is horrible. It's delivered in a robot-like tone. It's very monotone. I'll say one thing, you know, I can respect what the Navy SEALs in this movie do for a living. They put up with a lot of crap and do it for, you know, they do it for the you know, for the love of their country. But they're not good actors. They're incredible, incredibly athletic, incredibly, you know, incredibly brave for what they do. You know, throwing yourself out of a plane, throwing yourself into the water, just throwing yourself into these amazing situations, without any real thought about how this would affect you or if you'll come out of it alive. But wow, when it comes to acting, yeah, it's painful. It's definitely painful. But I can't fault them too much. I mean, you know, there's no way that anyone in the film world would have been able to pull off even half of what these Navy SEALs did in anything resembling a convincing manner. And that brings us to the end of another podcast. I want to thank you once again for tuning in to this ongoing audio experiment. I'm hoping to have another episode up for you soon. I want to make this as regular as I can, at least once a week on a proper schedule, if there is such a thing as a proper update schedule in the world of photography. In the meantime, there will be some new material coming out on the website. I am working on new video material. I had hoped to already have it up by now. Unfortunately, we had some technical setbacks, was not able to record the audio the way I wanted to. So we're going to be doing that probably tonight as this uploads to the YouTube. And with any luck, we'll have a second update tonight in terms of the website. Once again, if you have any comments, concerns, questions, feedback of any kind, please send it to inbox@sgnr.photo. I'm also found on Twitter @sgnrphoto. And as always, I can be reached through the Facebook fan page, facebook.com/sgnrphoto. And if you have a question you'd like answered, either on the podcast or in video form, you can add the hashtag AskSGNR. So until next time, drive safe.